Good morning and welcome to Morning Scoop for Wednesday, April 6th. This is your daily Buckeye fix. I'm Tom Orr. The spring game is in 10 days, the Notre Dame game in 150 days, the game against Michigan in 234 days. Recruiting season is in full swing. Last weekend, arguably the most talented 7-on-7 team in the nation, the South Florida Express, sent a huge contingent of players to Columbus to visit Ohio State. The great Bill Greene is as plugged in with that team as anyone in the business, and he joins me this morning. Bill, thanks for being here.
Hey, nice to be here, Tom. How you doing?
Good. It is delightful to see you, see your smiling face on camera again. The last time we did this, we had to do it audio only, so good to have you back on camera. We have talked about 7-on-7 and the South Florida Express on the show a number of times before. But for people who maybe don't remember, can you let them know what the South Florida Express is and why they're such a big deal?
Yeah, South Florida Express is just it's a name of a 7-on-7 organization in Miami. High school kids. They usually get started around January and they wrap things up before camp season in June. And it's hardcore, big time, competitive. They go nationwide to play in tournaments. And it's huge everywhere in America except Ohio, who does not allow it. Ohio, you have to be with your high school team only. Well, this basically is like AAU basketball, and the kids that play it are all the top kids in America, other than from Ohio, and everybody's convinced that it makes them better, and it does make them better. So South Florida Express started about, I would say 15 years ago, maybe longer, and it was just a group of guys in the Miami area that, they just started getting high school kids, and they would play 7-on-7 against each other. And 7-on-7 is huge in Florida, and then teams from Orlando got a group, and let's play the guys from Miami. Meet us next Saturday somewhere. And then, some companies got involved then in sponsoring this stuff. Adidas is huge in 7-on-7, and it's just grown. It's out of control now. It's the most amazing thing. I've gone to tournaments, in Miami, in Bradenton, and there'll be 40 teams there. Team from California, 2 from Arizona, 2 from Missouri, 5 from Texas, 10 from Florida, and it's amazing. They battle it out all day. Well, this group is headed by a guy named Brett Getz. Brett is a businessman, financial planner in Miami, and he was like one of the originators of, Miami 7-on-7. And it has just grown and grown and grown, and he stayed with it. He loves it. He loves, just being a part of these kids. He's, from his experiences as a financial planner, he's kind of taken that mentorship to these kids, and he tries to help them. Like I say, every school that doesn't get a kid that's on 7-on-7, they blame Brett Getz that he's an agent for that school. And truth be told, if you would look at the list of people he has sent to college, they go everywhere. He's had kids at Ohio State before, going back as far as Etienne Sabino, Travis Howard, Jeremy Cash, Jamal Berry, that he's had guys at Ohio State. And then they had a run where they didn't have any kids at Ohio State at all. And now it looks good that they got some kids. And again, he doesn't push kids to any school. He's a Florida Gator. You'd think all his kids would go to Florida. Some do, some don't. And really, Brett, I think nationwide, I think coaches understand that Brett is not a decision maker. So, he's not going to push a kid anywhere. He lets the kid make the decision. That way, if the kid's decision goes wrong, he doesn't call Brett next year and say, hey, you told me to go to this school, and this school's horrible, and my life is no, that's not going to happen that way. This all came to a head, I would say, about 7 or 8 years ago. There was a bowl game between Louisville, and I think Louisville was playing Florida. And he had 15, I think, ex-South Florida Express players in that game. And people on Twitter were calling it the Brett Bowl. And that really, really took off for him. So, but again, he doesn't do this full time. He loves being a part of these kids' lives, helping them. And again, he's not an agent for any school. He will be accused of being an Ohio State agent if they get this haul. It looks like they might get. But truth be told, Jordan Battle was an SFE kid who Ohio State had. until they did. Carlton Davis was an SFE kid who Ohio State had until they didn't. Brett's not involved with the decision. So, but he's got a great crew of players. I mean, the NFL's littered with guys that played for South Florida Express.
Well, you mentioned the potential haul that Ohio State could get. I mean, last weekend, a bunch of their guys were up in Columbus to visit. Yes. Let's start with a pair of, really elite wide receivers in the class of 2023. Carnell, Tate, and Brandon Ennis. Those are names that I'm sure people know by now. You and I have talked about them several times, and I know you have been very optimistic about where Ohio State stands with both of those guys kind of throughout this process. Did anything change there one direction or another this weekend?
No, I think it really solidified how both guys feel right now. And I've had Carnell Tate to Ohio State since camp last summer when we saw him there. I was able to talk to his dad, talk to Carnell, and I think Hartline's getting this kid, and I've never really wavered on that. Now, I thought he would have been committed by now, and he's not. So we'll see. I still think Ohio State is going to get him. Feel real good about it. Brandon Ennis was committed to Oklahoma, and I think he was going to go to Oklahoma until that situation totally fell apart. Lincoln Riley to USC, and just, and USC is in this picture. I mean, and if you go on 24/7 Sports, you'll see about 15 crystal balls, and all 15 are for USC. And I get it. Mario Williams is a receiver there who's a good friend of Brandon's. Brandon knows Caleb Williams, loved Lincoln Riley, loved the wide receiver coach there. I think it's too far from home. And I think Hartline is going to win this one. And I'm going to be out on that crystal ball limb all by myself on this one. But I just think Brandon Ennis is coming to Ohio State. If I'm wrong, I'll take the heat for it, but I think I'm right here. And I think Ohio State's going to get both of them.
All right. Well, the way recruiting works, like we all have a guy. Like you got a guy somewhere. This is the guy who knows about these kids. You have your South Florida Express guys. I have a guy who covers high school football in Florida who will just like periodically send me names to keep an eye on. Just hey, here's a freshman, here's a sophomore, who just like keep an eye on this dude. A year or two from now, this might be a name to know. He has been banging the drum for 2023 running back Mark Fletcher for quite a while now. Fletcher was just at Ohio State. What is the latest on him?
I think this ball is probably in Ohio State's court. I know they want two running backs in this class. They're in good shape with Richard Young. There's the Baxter kid they're in good shape with. So, it's going to come down to, I think, Mark Fletcher trying to commit to Ohio State and Ryan Day giving thumbs up or thumbs down. And, before this visit took place, and these visits were all paid for by these kids. These were unofficial visits. Families paid for them. They aren't cheap to fly anymore. So Mark Fletcher, Ohio State knew he was coming, and they know he's coming there for a reason. So they could have discouraged it, 2-3 weeks ago and said, we're kind of full. We got our guys, but they're not. They're not. Tony Alford is recruiting that kid hard. So I think Mark Fletcher is going to try to commit to Ohio State here at some point, and then they're going to have a decision to make. And I don't think they're going to be surprised if he tries to commit or when he tries to commit. So I think they're going to take him. And I think Mark Fletcher is probably going to end up in this Ohio State class. So he's a name to watch. I mean, and Richard Young is tremendous. I mean, my gosh, we love Richard Young. We saw him at Ohio State. But like your friend told you, Mark Fletcher is really good. He's Carlos Hyde to me. He is Carlos Hyde. Without Carlos had a little baggage. He went to Fort Union. He didn't go there for vacation. Mark Fletcher has no baggage. His dad was with him on this trip, and great kid, great player.
All right, next up is 2023 safety Damien Fagan. That's someone. It sounds like you may be the high guy on Damien Fagan. You were very, very, very high on him. Let people know about him and what you like there.
He's a safety, and he's on the high end. He's Malik Hooker, and on the low end, he's a darn good athlete who's Jordan Fuller, maybe. I think he's rated incorrectly by 24/7. I love those guys. I worked with them. I think they've missed this one. And I'm not the guy that is, going to prop up anybody that looks like he's going to go to Ohio State. I don't do that. I'm usually the one making fun of the Buckeye bump that kids get or the Bama bump. This Fagan's for real. And I think he's going to commit. at some point, and I think they're going to take him, even though, they're going to get Malik Hartford. They're chasing down Zagaro. I mean, but, I think Damien Fagan's going to be in this class, and I think people are going to love him. I mean, I think he's highly, highly underrated. Seen him in person, and I like everything about him.
You mentioned Malik Hartford there. I talked to Kevin Noon about him on yesterday's show. Just as a reminder, he's committing today, Wednesday. He will announce. Ohio State does look like they're in pretty good shape there, but you can not knock on whatever wood is around you if you are so inclined until the hay is in the barn on that one. Last guy who was visiting last weekend, we got one guy who didn't make the trip we're going to talk about in a minute, but last guy who was visiting last weekend is a guy who actually isn't from the South Florida Express, but who might maybe be affiliated with the South Florida Express at some point soon. He is Dylan Raiola, a 2024 quarterback. What are you hearing about him?
Yeah, he kind of hit it off with Tate and Ennis, and then there were the two 2024 receivers were there, JoJo Trader and JJ Smith, also five-star type kids in my mind. And they all just kind of hit it off with Raiola, and they tore into him when they asked him what 7-on-7 team he played for in Arizona, because they've got a trip to Arizona coming up, I think in a month or 6 weeks, and they want to know who he's playing for. And he said, I don't play 7-on-7. Oh, they went crazy on him about that. They just made fun of him, and you're scared and blah blah blah. And then it kind of changed to, well, if you're not playing for anyone, when we come out to Arizona, play for us, and that can happen. I mean, USC, had one of their recruits play for the South Florida Express when they visited LA. Coincidentally, Lincoln Riley, he's no dummy. One of the quarterbacks couldn't make it for South Florida Express. So he's like, oh, this kid is committed to me. He'll play for you. But now it was funny because they kind of kidded the Raiola kid, and these South Florida Express kids, these Miami kids, they're brash. I mean, they hold nothing back. They have feelings and they make them known. Well, it was so funny because this happened in the afternoon when everybody was at Ohio State, I think for that scrimmage on Saturday. And then here later on Saturday night, the head of South Florida Express, Brett gets a phone call that he doesn't recognize the number. He answers it, and it was Dylan Raiola's dad, Dom Raiola, played in the NFL, and said, tell me about 7-on-7, and are those kids serious that Dylan can play for you guys when you come to Arizona? Brett told him, heck yes, we'd love to have him. So we'll see how that works out. But, at the end of that trip, the South Florida Express kids were pretty much all in agreement that Dylan Raiola is going to end up at Ohio State.
Yeah, recruiting being all about comfort and relationships, as we have said millions of times over the years. If there's some comfort and some relationships there between those wide receivers and that quarterback, that wouldn't be a terrible thing for Ohio State. No. One thing that wasn't ideal for Ohio State was one guy who didn't make the trip. That was quarterback Cormani Mclean, 5-star player, ranked one of the top 5 players in the class in the 247 composite. I mean, just everyone agrees, this guy is that dude. Yep. He did not make the trip. He was supposed to, and then didn't actually get up there. What happened there, and anything to read into that from Ohio State's end?
Well, it wasn't good for Ohio State, but it was out of Cormani's hands. He lives up in the northern part of Florida. He's not in the Miami area, so when 7-on-7 occurs in Miami, he's got to find a way down there. He drives a couple of hours just to play, and then a couple of hours home, but flights were canceled, and even the flights out of Miami had to be rebooked. The South Florida Express did not show up at Ohio State when they were supposed to. I mean, and Brett Getz is in charge of all these flights, and not everybody's on the same flight flying from the same city. So that's a mess. And Cormani and his mom had tickets purchased, and their flight was canceled, and it was not rebooked the next day. So he couldn't have gotten to Ohio State at the earliest until Saturday night, and that just didn't make any sense. School on Monday, and the visit ends Sunday morning for the other kids. So they've got that voucher. There is talk of them rebooking and showing up in 2 weeks, and we'll see if that happens. Ohio State loves him, and with good reason they love him. And it would have been great if he could have been there and had the experience that the South Florida Express kids had all together. But, circumstances dictated it just couldn't happen on Cormani's end. It wasn't that he canceled or bailed on them. The flights were canceled. Nothing he could do. They do have the voucher, and we'll see if he shows in 2 weeks. So for Ohio State, I mean, obviously they would take him and love to have him on campus at any time. But boy, it would have been perfect because the way that South Florida Express weekend went with all those kids was really amazing. And it would have been great for Cormani to be a part of that, from the Ohio State point of view.
Well, that's certainly one to keep an eye on, and we'll, 10 days from now, the spring game, we'll see if Cormani Mclean is in Ohio Stadium. That'll probably be a good indication, maybe which direction this one's all headed. But Bill, thank you for joining me. It was wonderful to have you back and back at 100%, and lots of always fun talking South Florida Express, because every time we talk South Florida Express, I think about when we were down at South Florida Express. It was Mark and Tony and I at a tryout before the national championship game. And boy, when you say those kids and those coaches will let you know what they're thinking, oh man, that is one entertaining program to be around. There is the talking doesn't stop. It is a blast. So yeah, looking forward to potentially having some more South Florida Express kids up in Columbus for camps, and then potentially beyond that. So thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.